Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the massive assembly hall on Nexus Prime. The building was huge, with walls that stretched up so high she could barely see the top. Thousands of alien beings filled the seats around her, their eyes, tentacles, and other strange body parts all focused on the center stage where she waited. Sarah had been Earth's voice in this place for 7 long years. 7 years of listening to aliens talk about humans like they were children. 7 years of watching her people get pushed around while she smiled and stayed polite. Today felt different, though. Today something was about to break. The Zephyrian Chancellor stepped forward to speak. He looked like a giant crystal that had learned to walk upright. When he moved, light bounced off his body in all directions. His voice sounded like breaking glass when he spoke. "Today we vote on Resolution 847C, the Chancellor announced. His words echoed through the massive hall. The human colonies in the outer systems will become property of the Galactic Council. All human families living there must move to the spaces we have chosen for them." Sarah felt her hands shake. She had known this was coming, but hearing it out loud made her stomach turn. The outer colonies were home to 15 million humans. They had built farms, cities, and schools there. Now the Council wanted to take it all away like it meant nothing. Furthermore, the Chancellor continued, all human children between ages 5 and 15 will attend our education centers. We must fix their violent nature before it spreads to other species. The hall erupted in cheers from the alien delegates. Sarah watched as beings from 12 different worlds celebrated what would destroy human families forever. They talked about her people like they were broken animals that needed training. This was not the first time the Council had hurt humanity. For 30 years since humans first met aliens, it had been one insult after another. Trade deals that cheated Earth out of resources. Technology sharing that only went one way. Military service where humans did the fighting while aliens took the credit. Sarah remembered when she first took this job. She believed she could make things better through talking and compromise. She thought if humans proved they were good people, the aliens would treat them fairly. How stupid she had been. The voting began. One by one, each alien species announced their choice. The ethereals, who looked like floating clouds of gas, voted yes. The Corvin Empire, with their 6 arms and metal skin, voted yes. The tree-like Sylvani voted yes. Every single species voted to destroy human independence. Sarah watched it happen and felt something cold settle in her chest. These aliens did not see humans as equals. They never would. To them, humans were useful tools that could be thrown away when they got inconvenient. When the voting ended, the Chancellor turned to Sarah with what might have been a smile. It was hard to tell with his crystal face. "Ambassador Chen," he said, "do you have any final words before we implement this resolution?" Sarah stood up slowly. The hall went quiet. Thousands of alien eyes watched her, waiting to see if she would beg or cry. Instead, she looked directly at the Chancellor and spoke in a clear, steady voice. "You have made your choice," she said. "Now humanity will make ours." The aliens laughed. They thought she was making empty threats. After all, what could humans do? They were the weakest species in the galaxy. Their technology was primitive. Their military was small. They had no real power here. Sarah walked out of the assembly hall while the aliens were still laughing. She went straight to her private quarters and locked the door. Then she sat down at her communication device and sent a message back to Earth. The message was short, just one sentence that would change everything. "Pandora Protocol is authorized." The gloves come off. She sent the message and then sat back in her chair. For the first time in years, Sarah smiled a real smile. The aliens thought they knew what humans were capable of. They thought wrong. Back on Earth, President Harrison received Sarah's message in his secure office deep underground. He read it 3 times to make sure he understood. Then he picked up a red phone that connected directly to the most secret part of the human government. "Dr. Webb," the president said when someone answered. "It's time. Activate all protocols immediately." Dr. Marcus Webb had been waiting for this call for 50 years. Ever since humans first met aliens, he had been preparing for the day when talking would not be enough. Now that day had come. "Understood, Mr. President," Webb replied. "Operation Comeback begins now." Across Earth, special messages went out to people in positions that seemed normal, but were actually very important. Janitors in alien buildings, mechanics who fixed alien ships, traders who delivered goods to alien worlds. These people had all been waiting for orders that finally came. The messages were simple. The children are coming home. Time to remind the galaxy what we really are. Within hours, things started happening all across known space. Small things at first. Power grids on alien worlds began having strange problems. Communication networks started glitching. Ships that had been in space for years suddenly changed course and headed toward targets no one expected. The aliens noticed something was wrong, but they did not understand what they were seeing. How could they? They had spent 30 years believing humans were weak and stupid. They never imagined that those weak, stupid humans had been planning for this exact moment. Sarah stayed in her quarters on Nexus Prime and watched the news reports coming in from across the galaxy. Mysterious system failures, unexplained explosions, ships disappearing from sensor readings. The aliens were starting to panic, but they still did not understand what was happening. She opened a bottle of wine she had been saving and poured herself a glass. Outside her window, she could see alien security forces running around in confusion. Their perfect, orderly world was falling apart, and they had no idea why. 30 years, Sarah said to herself, raising her glass. 30 years of being treated like garbage. I hope it was worth it. The wine tasted better than anything she had ever drunk. Tomorrow the galaxy would learn what happened when you pushed humanity too far. Tonight she would enjoy watching their precious council burn. In the distance, explosions lit up the sky over Nexus Prime. The war had begun, and the aliens were about to discover that they had picked a fight with the wrong species. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. Now they knew, and now they were going to show the galaxy exactly why humans had conquered every environment on their home planet long before they ever left it. President Harrison walked down a hallway that did not officially exist. The elevator had taken him 300 feet below the White House, past levels that even most government officials did not know about. 2 armed guards checked his identity 3 times before letting him through the final door. The room beyond was filled with screens showing star maps, alien worlds, and data streams that would have made regular people's heads spin. This was the headquarters of the Department of Xenological Contingencies, the most secret organization in human space. Dr. Marcus Webb stood waiting for him. Webb was a thin man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had spent his entire adult life preparing for a war that everyone hoped would never come. Now that war was here, and he looked almost relieved. "Mr. President," Webb said, shaking Harrison's hand. "Welcome to the real human government." Harrison looked around the room at dozens of people working at computer stations. "How long has this place existed?" "Since 3 days after first contact," Webb replied. "We started planning for this the moment we realized the aliens thought we were inferior." Webb led Harrison to a conference table where several other people waited. Harrison recognized some of them as low-level government workers he had met at boring meetings. Now he realized they had been far more important than anyone knew. "Let me explain what we have been doing for the past 50 years, Webb said, activating a large screen. "The aliens made several mistakes when they first met us. They assumed we were primitive because our technology looked different from theirs. They thought we were weak because we did not fight back when they insulted us. Most importantly, they believed we were honest about our capabilities." The screen showed a map of the galaxy with human colonies marked in blue. Harrison had always thought there were about 200 human settlements spread across 50 star systems. The map showed over 800. "We have been building hidden colonies for decades," Webb explained. "Every time we sent out an official colony ship, we sent 3 unofficial ones. The aliens think they know where all our people live. They are very wrong." Harrison stared at the map. "How did you hide this from everyone? From me?" "The president is told about this program when it becomes necessary," Webb said. "Every president since contact has been briefed, but only when we were ready to act. We needed you to act naturally when dealing with the aliens. If you had known the truth, they might have sensed something was wrong." Webb pressed another button and the screen changed to show technical drawings of weapons and ships. "We have also been reverse engineering alien technology since day 1. Every piece of equipment they ever gave us, every ship they let us examine, every trade good they sent to Earth. We took it all apart and figured out how it worked." The weapons on the screen looked nothing like the simple projectile guns that human military forces used publicly. These were energy weapons, gravity bombs, and devices that Harrison could not even identify. "The aliens think human technology is primitive," Webb continued. "They think we still use gunpowder and metal bullets. They have no idea that we have been building quantum weapons and antimatter bombs for 30 years. Harrison felt dizzy. How many people know about this? "About 50,000 humans across the galaxy are directly involved in our hidden operations," Webb said. They work as janitors, mechanics, traders, diplomats, and other jobs that give them access to alien facilities. To everyone else, they look like normal people just trying to make a living. Webb activated another screen that showed photographs of ordinary-looking humans in various alien cities. Meet our real military. Sarah Martinez has been cleaning offices in the Zephyrian capital for 15 years. She knows the layout of every important building and has planted surveillance devices throughout the city. James Park runs a small trading company that delivers food to Corvin military bases. His cargo ships are actually filled with weapons and soldiers. Harrison looked at photo after photo of humans who had spent decades preparing for this moment. What about our regular military? The ships and soldiers everyone knows about. They are real, but they are also a distraction, Webb explained. The aliens think our few hundred military ships are all we have. They do not know about the 1,000 stealth vessels we have been building in hidden shipyards. They think our soldiers are brave but poorly equipped. They have never seen our real weapons. Webb walked over to a detailed model of the galaxy and pointed to various star systems. The aliens have been so confident in their superiority that they stopped paying attention to what we were actually doing. They gave us jobs maintaining their technology, building their infrastructure, and serving on their ships. They thought they were using us. Actually, we were studying them. Harrison began to understand the scope of what had been hidden from him. You learned their weaknesses. Every single one, Webb confirmed. The Zephyrians are completely dependent on their computer networks. Disrupt those and their entire civilization stops working. The ethereals need specific gas mixtures to survive, and we know exactly which chemicals will poison them. The Corvin Empire looks strong, but their military doctrine has not changed in 300 years. They cannot adapt to new tactics. Webb pressed a final button and the screen showed a timeline stretching back 50 years. We have been playing a very long game, Mr. President. Every trade deal that seemed to favor the aliens actually gave us access to their technology. Every military exercise where we looked weak taught us how they fight. Every diplomatic failure gave us intelligence about their decision-making processes. Harrison studied the timeline and saw decades of careful planning. Why now? Why did we wait so long? Because we needed them to underestimate us completely, Webb said. If we had acted too early, they might have realized what we were capable of and taken precautions. We needed them to be so confident in their superiority that they would never see us coming. Webb walked to a window that looked out over the operations center. Dozens of people were working frantically at computer stations, coordinating actions across the galaxy. The Galactic Council just voted to destroy human independence, Webb said. They think they are dealing with a weak species that will accept whatever they decide. They are about to learn that they have declared war on a species that has been preparing for this moment since the day we first looked up at the stars. Harrison watched the activity in the operations center and felt a strange mix of pride and fear. What happens now? Now we show them what humans are really capable of, Webb replied. The aliens think they know us. They think we are primitive, emotional, and easily controlled. They are about to discover that those traits they mock are actually our greatest strengths. Webb handed Harrison a tablet showing the current status of operations across the galaxy. Green lights were appearing on star systems throughout alien space, indicating that human agents were in position and ready to act. The aliens have spent 50 years teaching us everything about their civilization, Webb said. They thought they were educating useful servants. Actually, they were training the soldiers who would bring them down. Harrison looked at the tablet and realized that humanity's real war was about to begin. The aliens had no idea what was coming for them. Sarah Martinez had been cleaning offices in the Zephyrian capital for 15 years. Every day she mopped floors, emptied trash cans, and dusted furniture while crystal beings walked past her like she did not exist. They never spoke to her except to complain when she missed a spot. To them, she was just another primitive human doing work they considered beneath them. Today was different. Today, Sarah had received the message she had been waiting for her entire adult life. 3 simple words: children coming home. Sarah finished cleaning the main government building just like she did every day. She smiled politely at the Zephyrian guards and wished them a good evening in their clicking language. They ignored her as usual. Then she walked to her small apartment and began the work she had really come here to do. The maintenance access panels throughout the government building had seemed like perfect places to hide small devices over the years. The Zephyrians never checked them because they trusted their technology completely, They never imagined that a simple human janitor could understand their systems well enough to sabotage them. Sarah activated a remote control that looked like an old human communications device. She pressed a sequence of buttons, and across the Zephyrian capital, 15 years of careful preparation began to pay off. The power grid failed first. The Zephyrians had built their entire civilization around perfect energy distribution. Every building, every vehicle, every piece of technology depended on a constant flow of power from their central generators. When Sarah's hidden devices activated, they created feedback loops that overloaded the entire system. The capital city went dark in minutes. Emergency systems tried to activate, but they failed too. Sarah had spent years learning how their backups worked, and she had sabotaged those as well. The crystal beings who had looked down on her for so long were suddenly stumbling around in the dark, completely helpless. Similar scenes were happening on 11 other worlds. Across the galaxy, humans who had spent decades pretending to be simple workers were revealing their true purpose. James Park, the trader who delivered food to Corvan military bases, activated hidden weapons that had been disguised as cargo containers. Lisa Wong, who had worked as a communications technician on the ethereal homeworld, used her access codes to turn their defense satellites against their own cities. The aliens had trusted these humans with access to their most important systems. They had never imagined that humans could be patient enough to plan something like this for so many years. Captain Elena Vasquez watched the chaos begin from the bridge of her ship, the Hidden Fang. For 20 years, her vessel had pretended to be a simple mining platform working in the asteroid fields near Nexus Prime. The aliens had grown so used to seeing it that they stopped paying attention to it completely. The Hidden Fang was not a mining ship. It was a stealth warship equipped with the most advanced weapons humanity had ever built. Around it in the asteroid field, 50 other mining platforms and cargo haulers were powering up weapons and charging their engines. "All ships report ready, Captain," her communications officer announced. Elena looked at the tactical display showing Nexus Prime and its orbital defenses. The aliens had built their capital to be perfectly safe. Massive space stations surrounded the planet, armed with enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. They had never considered that their enemies might already be inside their defenses. "Begin the attack," Elena ordered. The human ships dropped their disguises and revealed their true nature. Advanced stealth technology made them nearly invisible to alien sensors. Weapons that the aliens thought were impossible for humans to build began tearing through their defensive platforms. The alien response was confused and slow. Their military commanders had not fought a real war in centuries. They were used to formal battles with lots of warning and careful positioning. They had no idea how to deal with enemies who appeared from nowhere and fought by no rules they understood. On Nexus Prime, Admiral Korath of the Galactic Defense Force watched his perfect orbital defenses fall apart in minutes. His staff officers were shouting reports that made no sense. Unknown ships appearing throughout the system. Defense Platform 7 is not responding. We're reading weapon signatures that don't match any known technology. Admiral Korath had fought in 3 minor wars during his long career. He had always won by using superior numbers and better technology. Now he was facing an enemy that seemed to have appeared from nowhere with weapons he had never seen before. "How many ships are attacking us?" he demanded. "We don't know, sir. Our sensors can barely detect them." "What about the human fleet? Where are their military vessels?" "Still in Earth orbit, sir. No movement detected." Admiral Korath stared at his tactical display and felt the first touch of real fear he had experienced in decades. If the human military was still at Earth, then who was attacking his defenses? The answer came from Captain Elena Vasquez herself. She opened a communication channel to all alien ships in the system and spoke in perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Vasquez of the Terran Defense Force," she announced. "You are facing the real human military. The ships you think you know about are just for show. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue fighting, and we will show you why humans conquered every environment on their homeworld before they ever left it." Admiral Korath tried to respond, but his communication systems had been hacked. Elena's message continued broadcasting while his own ships lost contact with each other. "For 30 years you have treated humanity as servants and soldiers," Elena said. "You thought we were useful but primitive. You were half right. We are very useful. But we are not primitive. We are patient. We are adaptable. And we remember every insult you have ever given us. The battle for Nexus Prime lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the alien orbital defenses were scrap metal floating in space. The human fleet had lost 3 ships. The aliens had lost everything. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Sarah Chen watched the emergency session with calm satisfaction. The alien delegates were panic-stricken, shouting reports from their homeworlds about mysterious attacks and system failures. The Zephyrian Chancellor, his crystal body dim without proper power, stood up to address the assembly. "This is clearly a terrorist attack by human extremists. We must respond with overwhelming force." Sarah stood up slowly and walked to the center of the chamber. The aliens all turned to look at her, expecting her to apologize or beg for mercy. Instead, she smiled. "Terrorist attack?" Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "This is not terrorism. This is war. You voted to destroy human independence. We voted to show you what human independence really means." The aliens stared at her in shock. How could this simple diplomat speak so confidently when her species was clearly being defeated? "You wanted to see human aggression," Sarah continued. "Congratulations. You have awakened something that has been sleeping for 50 years, and it remembers every slight, every insult, every injustice you have ever committed against humanity." The chamber erupted in angry alien voices, but Sarah's words continued broadcasting throughout the galaxy. Humans everywhere heard their ambassador finally speaking the truth about what their species was really capable of. The first day of the war was over. The aliens were beginning to realize they had made a terrible mistake. The Galactic Council crossed the line, and humanity. Finally, Snapped Admiral James Rodriguez stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Relentless, and studied the tactical display showing the Corvin system. 3 weeks had passed since the war began, and the aliens were still struggling to understand what they were fighting. The Corvin Empire controlled 12 star systems and had the largest military in the galaxy after the Zephyrians. Their ships were massive, heavily armored, and packed with weapons. Their soldiers were disciplined and experienced. By every measure that mattered to traditional warfare, they should have been able to crush the human fleet. They were losing badly. Enemy fleet detected at the edge of the system. "Admiral," his tactical officer reported, 47 Corvin battleships moving to intercept us." Rodriguez nodded. The Corvins always responded the same way. They would gather their ships into a large formation and move forward to engage in a direct battle. It was a strategy that had worked for them for 300 years. It would not work today. "Signal the fleet," Rodriguez ordered. "Execute Plan Nomad 7. The human ships scattered in 12 different directions. Some headed for the asteroid belt. Others dove toward the system's gas giant. A few seemed to retreat entirely. The Corvin fleet, designed to fight in large formations, had no idea which group to chase. This was the Nomad strategy, and it was driving the aliens insane with frustration. Humans refused to fight fair. They would appear, strike hard, and disappear before the aliens could respond properly. When the aliens tried to corner them, they found only empty space and sensor ghosts. Rodriguez watched as his ships took up positions throughout the Corvin system. The aliens were still thinking in terms of big fleet battles and territorial control. Humans were thinking like hunters. "Target their supply depots first," Rodriguez commanded. "Then their communication relays. Leave the military bases for last." The Corvin Admiral Tormax received reports of attacks all across his system. Human ships were hitting targets he had not even thought to defend. They were destroying fuel stations, cargo transports, and maintenance facilities. They were not trying to conquer his worlds. They were trying to paralyze them. "Why aren't they attacking our military bases?" Tormax demanded of his staff. His intelligence officer, a young Corvin named Vex, had been studying human tactics since the war began. "Sir, I think they want our military intact but useless. If they destroy our supplies and communications, our ships become floating prisons." Tormax had commanded fleets for 60 years. He had fought in formal battles where both sides knew the rules. This was something completely different. The humans were not trying to defeat his military. They were trying to make it irrelevant. On the planet Corva Prime, the capital of the Empire, citizens were starting to panic. The power grid was failing randomly. Food shipments were not arriving. Communication with other worlds kept cutting out. The humans had not landed a single soldier on the planet, but their civilization was falling apart anyway. The psychological warfare was just as devastating as the physical attacks. Dr. Amanda Foster, humanity's top expert on alien psychology, had spent decades studying how different species thought and what frightened them most. Now she was using that knowledge to break their will to fight. The Zephyrians prided themselves on logical perfection and technological superiority. So humans hacked their computer networks and filled them with paradoxes that crashed their systems. Their crystal bodies relied on precise frequency harmonics to function. Human sonic weapons disrupted those frequencies and left them writhing in agony. The ethereals considered themselves above physical concerns and viewed their gaseous forms as proof of their spiritual evolution. Human nanobots, invisible to their senses, slowly poisoned their atmospheric habitats. They began to suffocate in their own homes while their leaders tried to figure out what was happening. Each alien species faced attacks designed specifically for their weaknesses. Weaknesses that humans had spent 50 years cataloging and preparing to exploit. The tree-like Sylvani found their forest cities infected with engineered diseases that turned their own plant matter against them. The insectoid Vexhi discovered that humans had learned to mimic their pheromone communication, allowing human agents to give false orders to entire military units. Captain Lisa Wong, working from a hidden base in the ethereal system, monitored the results of her bioweapons with scientific detachment. She had pretended to be a simple communications technician for 12 years, while secretly studying ethereal biology. Now she was using that knowledge to show them what happened when someone underestimated human intelligence. Atmospheric composition in city complex. 7 is reaching critical levels, she reported to Admiral Rodriguez, estimated 24 hours before complete system failure. Any response from their military? Rodriguez asked. They're still trying to fight our ships with traditional tactics, Wong replied. They haven't figured out that the real attack is happening inside their homes. This was the true genius of the human strategy. The aliens kept looking for military targets to fight, while their entire civilization crumbled around them. They were trained to think in terms of armies and territories. Humans were attacking the very idea of their superiority. On Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. Half the delegates were appearing by hologram because their homeworlds were under attack. The other half were demanding immediate action. "We must strike back at Earth," shouted the Corvan representative. "Destroy their homeworld and end this madness." Ambassador Sarah Chen, still somehow present despite the chaos, stood up to respond. She had not left Nexus Prime since the war began, seemingly trapped on the enemy capital. The aliens had no idea she was exactly where she wanted to be. "You are welcome to try," Sarah said calmly. "Earth's coordinates are public knowledge. I'm sure your fleets will have no trouble finding it." The alien delegate stared at her. How could she be so calm when her homeworld was threatened? Sarah activated a personal communicator and spoke into it clearly. "Dr. Webb, they want to attack Earth. Should I be worried?" Dr. Webb's voice came through clearly enough for the entire chamber to hear. "Not particularly. We've been expecting that. The home defense fleet has been waiting for them." "How many ships?" Sarah asked. "About 3,000 stealth frigates, 500 heavy cruisers, and the new dreadnought class we finished last month, plus the orbital defense platforms we built while they weren't paying attention." The alien delegates went silent. 3,000 ships? The Galactic Council Intelligence Services had reported that humanity possessed fewer than 200 military vessels total. Sarah smiled at their shocked faces. "You spent 50 years teaching us everything about your military capabilities. Did you think we weren't taking notes?" The ethereal representative, speaking through a gas-filled communication device, managed to ask the question they were all thinking. "How many ships do you actually have?" "Enough," Sarah replied. "We've been building them while you thought we were mining asteroids and hauling cargo. Every human colony you knew about was hiding 3 you didn't. Every trading post was a disguised military base. Every cargo hauler was a stealth warship waiting for orders." The chamber erupted in angry alien voices, but Sarah continued speaking. "You made one crucial mistake," she said. "You assumed that because we looked primitive, we were primitive. You thought that because we didn't fight back immediately, we couldn't fight back at all. You believed your own propaganda about human inferiority." Sarah walked slowly around the chamber, looking at each alien delegate in turn. "Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years," she continued. "We know every possible way to wage war. We understand strategy, tactics, logistics, and psychology better than species who have lived in peace for centuries. You thought our aggression was a weakness, Actually, it was our greatest strength. The truth was finally sinking in for the alien leaders. They had not declared war on a primitive species. They had declared war on the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. And those predators had been preparing for this fight since the day they first met aliens. The hunt was just beginning. 18 months after the war began, the Galactic Council chamber looked very different. The grand hall that had once been filled with arrogant alien delegates was now half empty. Many of the remaining aliens appeared by hologram because their homeworlds were too damaged for them to travel safely. The Zephyrian Chancellor, his crystal body cracked and dim, stood at the center of the chamber. Around him, the other alien leaders looked broken and desperate. The confident beings who had once voted to destroy human independence were now begging for mercy from the species they had underestimated. "We request an immediate ceasefire," the Chancellor announced, his voice weak and distorted. "The Galactic Council is prepared to negotiate new terms for human membership." Ambassador Sarah Chen entered the chamber, but this time she was not alone. Behind her walked representatives from every human colony, every ship and every world that had endured alien contempt for 50 years. They wore simple black uniforms with no decorations except small patches showing Earth's blue marble against the stars. Sarah took her place at the center of the chamber and looked around at the aliens who had once dismissed her as a primitive barbarian. Now they could not meet her eyes. "You want to negotiate," Sarah said. Her voice carried easily through the chamber, clear and strong. "Very well. Let me tell you what humanity's terms will be." She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Dozens of alien worlds were marked in red, indicating severe damage to their infrastructure. Trade routes that had operated for centuries were broken. Military fleets that had once seemed invincible were scattered and hiding. "First," Sarah announced, "the Galactic Council as a governing body is dissolved immediately. No single organization will ever again have the power to decide the fate of entire species based on the arrogance of its members." The alien delegates started to protest, but Sarah continued speaking. "Second, all debts and obligations forced upon humanity during our membership in the Council are cancelled. You will return every resource you stole from us through unfair trade deals and forced taxation." The Corvin representative tried to object. Those were legal agreements under Council law. Sarah turned to look at him directly. "Council law was written by you for you to benefit you. It never applied to us as equals because you never saw us as equals. That law is dead." She activated another display showing the proposed structure of a new galactic government. "Third, we established the Terran Confederation. Every species will have equal representation regardless of their age, technology, or military power. Decisions will be made by consensus, not by the strongest forcing their will on the weakest." The ethereal representative, speaking through a damaged communication device, asked the question they were all thinking. "What if we refuse these terms?" Sarah smiled, and for the first time since the war began, it was not a friendly expression. "Then we continue what we started. Admiral Rodriguez, please show our friends the current tactical situation." Admiral Rodriguez's image appeared on the chamber's main screen. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship showed calm efficiency and quiet confidence. The human fleet currently controls 47 star systems that were formerly under Council authority. Our stealth ships have mapped every remaining alien military installation in the galaxy. Our deep cover agents are in position throughout your governments and military organizations. Rodriguez paused to let that information sink in. "If you choose to continue fighting, we will finish what you started. And I promise you, when we are done, there will be nothing left of your civilizations except the history books that record your mistakes." The alien delegates looked around at each other in panic. They had started this war believing they were crushing a primitive rebellion. Now they realized they were facing the complete destruction of everything they had built. The Silvani representative, her tree-like form withered and diseased, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. "What guarantee do we have that humans will not simply become the new oppressors?" Sarah gestured to the human delegates standing behind her. "Look at us. We are not conquerors. We are survivors. We have spent 50 years learning what it feels like to be dismissed, ignored, and abused by those who consider themselves superior. We will never inflict that experience on others." She walked closer to the alien delegates, and several of them instinctively backed away. "But make no mistake, we will also never allow it to happen to us again. The galaxy will remember this war. It will remember what happens when you push humanity too far. Dr. Webb's voice came through the chamber's communication system. The humanity doctrine has been transmitted to every inhabited world in the galaxy. From now on, any species that attempts to subjugate another based on perceived inferiority will answer to the Terran Defense Force. Sarah activated a final display showing the text of the new galactic law. No species may be enslaved, dismissed, or underestimated because others consider them primitive. No government may impose its will on others simply because it believes itself superior. And no one will ever again make the mistake of thinking that humanity is weak because we prefer peace. The chamber was silent as the aliens read the terms of their surrender. Everything they had built, every advantage they had enjoyed, every assumption they had made about their place in the galaxy was being swept away. The Zephyrian Chancellor finally spoke. And if we agree to these terms, what happens to our civilizations? You rebuild, Sarah replied. You learn to live as equals instead of masters. You discover what the galaxy looks like when it is not run by species who think they are better than everyone else. Sarah walked back to her delegation and turned to face the aliens one final time. You spent 50 years teaching us that might makes right. You showed us that in this galaxy, the strong do whatever they want to the weak. Congratulations. You created the very enemy you feared most. She paused and looked directly at each alien leader. But you also taught us something else. You taught us that no matter how confident the predator becomes, there is always something higher up the food chain. Today you discovered what that looks like. The voting began, but this time it was different. One by one, each alien species voted to accept humanity's terms. They had no choice. The alternative was the complete destruction of their civilizations by an enemy they had created through their own arrogance. When the voting ended, Sarah stepped forward to sign the treaty that would reshape the galaxy. As she wrote her name on the document, she spoke one final time to the assembled aliens. 50 years ago, humanity came to the stars hoping to find friends. Instead, we found masters who treated us like servants. You taught us that the universe is not a friendly place for the weak, so we became strong. She finished signing and stood up straight. The Terran Confederation welcomes all species who wish to live in peace and equality. But remember this day. Remember what happened when you decided that humanity could be pushed around without consequences. Sarah turned and walked out of the chamber, followed by her delegation. Behind them, the aliens sat in stunned silence, trying to comprehend how completely their world had changed. The war was over. Humanity had won not just a military victory, but something far more important. They had proven that no species, no matter how advanced or powerful, could safely underestimate the determination of people who had nothing left to lose. The galaxy would never make that mistake again. 3 months later, the first session of the Terran Confederation convened on a neutral space station. Representatives from every species sat at a circular table where no one position was more important than any other. The age of alien supremacy was over. Humanity had finally taken its place among the stars, not as servants or junior partners, but as equals who had earned their respect through fire and blood. And everyone in the galaxy understood that the price of testing human patience had become far too high to pay. The humans had kept their promise. They remembered every slight, every insult, every injustice, and they had made sure that the lessons learned in blood would never be forgotten.